Did you know more than half of the diesel sold across the U.S. doesn't have the additives modern engines need to prevent buildup and wear? Every year, thousands of diesel trucks, pickups, and SUVs end up with expensive repairs not because they were abused, but because of poor quality diesel, clogged injectors, stuck EGR valves, failing high-pressure fuel pumps, all traced back to what went into the tank. So today, we're counting down 5 diesel fuel brands you should seriously think twice about using. And stick around, because at the end, I'll show you 3 brands that actually protect your engine, the same ones that have helped Powerstroke and Duramax trucks push past 400,000 miles without drama. Let's get into it. To be fair, very few people drive to Safeway with the intention of filling up with diesel in the first place. In the minds of most American drivers, Safeway is still where you buy meat for dinner, milk for the morning, or a few weekend groceries. It's not the name that comes to mind when you're deciding where to trust the fate of a diesel engine that has already rolled a few 100,000 miles, but sometimes it's simply convenient. The price at the pump is a few cents cheaper per gallon, your usual station is packed, or you just don't feel like driving a few extra miles today just to fuel up. And then a familiar thought quietly creeps in. Soft, reasonable, and very dangerous. Diesel is diesel. Every station is basically the same. As long as it meets EPA standards, it's fine. However, Safeway is not on the top-tier diesel list. To many people, that sounds like nothing more than a marketing label. But for diesel engines, it marks a very clear line between good enough to run and designed to protect. Without top-tier certification, there is no mandatory standard for minimum detergent additives, fuel lubricity, or consistency and quality across stations. Safeway may fully meet the minimum legal requirements, but minimum was never designed to protect high-pressure injectors, high-pressure fuel pumps, or the complex emission systems found in modern diesel engines. The EPA cares whether your vehicle exceeds emissions limits. Whether that engine stays healthy at 300,000 or 400,000 miles, frankly, is not their concern. Older diesel engines could be forgiving. They could burn almost anything and keep going. Modern diesel engines are a completely different story. When detergent additives are low, carbon slowly starts to build up on injector tips. The injector holes gradually narrow, and the spray pattern loses its original precision. When lubricity is insufficient, high-pressure injectors and fuel pumps are forced to operate in drier conditions than they were designed for. After several consecutive fill-ups, injectors begin to foul, spray unevenly, and combustion becomes less efficient. Then the familiar symptoms show up: harder cold starts, rough idle, light vibrations at a stop, sluggish throttle response. Over time, soot accumulates in the EGR system, DPF regeneration cycles become more frequent, and the lifespan of both injectors and the fuel pump drops noticeably. That being said, Safeway diesel isn't always immediately bad, but it's not suitable for long-term use, not ideal for modern diesel engines, and certainly not for anyone who wants their vehicle to run reliably for many more years. 7-Eleven is not a fuel producer or refiner. They don't own refineries, and they don't operate under a single unified diesel formula across their entire network. Instead, 7-Eleven purchases fuel from local suppliers, prioritizing 2 very practical factors: low cost and available supply. That makes perfect sense for their retail business model, but it's far from ideal for modern diesel engines. The result is that the diesel you pump at a 7-Eleven station in Texas can be very different from the diesel at a 7-Eleven in Ohio or California. Not just different in origin, but different in additive levels, lubricity, and cleanliness. There is no unified additive standard and no guarantee that one station matches another. And the driver has absolutely no way of knowing what's actually going into the tank. This lack of consistency is exactly what diesel engines hate the most. Modern diesels are designed to operate on stable, clean fuel with predictable lubricity. When fuel quality depends on local suppliers, storage tanks, and maintenance schedules, risk begins to build, even if it's hard to notice at first. One of the most common risks is water contamination. Aging underground tanks, uneven maintenance, or water entering through heavy rain or condensation inside the tank. Even a small amount of water in diesel can degrade combustion, cause corrosion in the fuel system, and push injectors and high-pressure pumps into unsafe operating conditions. The vehicle may still run, but internally, damage is slowly accumulating. The second risk is dirty fuel. When diesel sits in storage for long periods or supply sources change frequently, sediment and contaminants can settle at the bottom of the tank. The result is fuel filters working overtime, uneven injector spray, and small hesitations during acceleration. Subtle symptoms that are easy to ignore if you're not paying close attention. These consequences don't happen overnight. At first, the vehicle still runs, no warning lights appear, and nothing seems wrong. But after several fill-ups, idle becomes less smooth, fuel consumption rises for no obvious reason, and over time, injectors wear faster, EGR systems clog more heavily, and the risk of DPF issues increases. Without a doubt, 7-Eleven is convenient. There are lots of locations, and they're easy to access, especially when you're in a hurry. But for modern diesel engines, convenience has never mattered more than consistency. When you step into a Circle K station, everything looks by the book. Clean facilities, bright signage, smooth and professional retail operations. There's no sense of anything sketchy or temporary. It doesn't look like a station you should be worried about, but if you look a little closer, you'll likely start to see the problem. Circle K does not refine its own diesel. They source fuel from multiple local suppliers depending on region, pricing, and availability. This gives the chain flexibility and helps keep operating costs down, but it comes with a very clear trade-off. Diesel at one Circle K station can be noticeably different from diesel at another, even if they're only a few states apart. Additive packages, fuel treatment, and overall stability are not standardized across the entire system. Circle K has had a history of fines and violations in certain states, especially in high rainfall regions, related to selling water-contaminated diesel. The causes are not mysterious. Underground storage tanks that slowly take on water over time, uneven maintenance between locations, or rapid changes in fuel supply after severe weather. Water-contaminated diesel is particularly dangerous because it rarely causes immediate failure. The engine still starts, still runs, and still gets you home safely. But inside, the fuel system is being worn down bit by bit. When diesel lacks proper detergent additives or has inconsistent combustion quality, the burn process becomes less complete. More soot is produced than normal. That soot, mixed with oil vapor, begins to build up heavily inside the EGR system. Exhaust gas flow gradually drops, the engine feels more sluggish, combustion temperatures rise, and the DPF is forced to regenerate more frequently. Injectors are the next victims. Dirty or water-contaminated diesel causes injector tips to carbon up, wear unevenly, and lose their proper spray pattern. Once injection is no longer precise, combustion efficiency drops, the engine vibrates more at idle, and throttle response becomes less smooth. Over time, injectors lose accuracy, and anyone who's ever replaced diesel injectors knows that's never a cheap appointment. Circle K seems to be a textbook example of the gap between brand image and actual fuel quality. A clean station does not mean clean diesel. A large chain does not automatically guarantee strong additives or strict tank control. With diesel engines, appearance only offers peace of mind. What's inside the fuel is what determines engine life. When people think of cheap fuel stations, Murphy USA often comes to mind. For this chain, low price is the top priority. Their entire business model revolves around cutting costs to keep pump prices a few cents lower than competitors. As a result, diesel is sourced from various local suppliers where price is the deciding factor, not additive quality or long-term engine protection. There is no unified additive formula across the network, and no clear commitment to exceeding minimum standards to protect modern diesel engines. Low cetane is one of the biggest issues. When cetane levels are low, fuel ignites more slowly, and combustion becomes less complete. The result is a louder engine, more vibration at idle, and slower throttle response. Weak detergent and lubricity additives might make things worse. Injectors get dirty faster, and high-pressure fuel pumps operate under less than ideal lubrication conditions. For modern high-pressure diesel injection systems, this is a major red flag. These components are not designed to tough it out, but to operate precisely with high-quality fuel. Over time, weak additives and low cetane lead to incomplete combustion and increased soot production. EGR systems clog faster, DPFs are forced to regenerate more often, and the entire exhaust system is placed under unnecessary stress. Murphy USA was also involved in contamination incidents in 2018 in states such as Texas and Louisiana. At that time, many vehicles stalled or experienced serious problems shortly after refueling. The issues were linked to the supply chain and local fuel providers. The key point here isn't a single incident. It's that when similar problems appear in multiple locations, the risk is no longer isolated. Saving a few cents per gallon sounds smart, but over a month, that amount is insignificant. Meanwhile, just one injector or high-pressure pump failure can wipe out all those savings in a single shop visit. Or worse, after years of running cheap diesel. And finally, the no-name fuel stations. Shady, off-spec diesel sources with unclear origins often show up at small stations with very little traffic, stations that change names frequently, or locations tucked deep inside industrial zones or remote areas where people just need fuel that gets the truck moving. Off-spec diesel, put bluntly, is diesel that does not meet ASTM standards. No one is controlling cetane levels. No one is guaranteeing lubricity. No one is responsible for fuel stability over time. It could be old stored diesel, water-contaminated diesel, or worse, illegally blended fuel. When you pump it into your tank, you're not just buying fuel. You're buying a gamble. The worst, and most frightening scenario, is recycled or waste oil-blended diesel. In the underground world of cheap fuel, this is not rare. Used engine oil, hydraulic oil, and industrial oils are collected, crudely filtered, diluted, and then sold as discount diesel. There is no way to control the remaining wear metals, toxic additives, or microscopic carbon debris mixed inside. All of it goes straight into your fuel system, and modern diesel engines are not designed to tolerate that. Waste oil contains things that should never enter a combustion chamber. Microscopic metals, non-burnable ash, and contaminants that cannot vaporize. Once inside the cylinder, they don't burn cleanly, they quickly turn into dense soot. Injectors get blasted, high-pressure pumps wear as if they're being sanded down, and pistons and rings take direct damage. It doesn't take long. It doesn't take tens of thousands of miles. Just a few tanks can be enough to cause serious damage. The exhaust system is the next to take the hit. Excessive soot clogs the DPF rapidly, forcing constant regenerations. The EGR system builds heavy deposits, valves begin to stick. The ECU starts throwing cascading fault codes, limiting power and pushing the vehicle into limp mode. At that point, the truck is no longer a reliable tool, it's a rolling liability. What's scary is that many warning signs appear very early. Right at the station, you may smell a harsh, burnt, or chemical odor. The fuel may look cloudy or unusually dark, but out of convenience or false confidence, many people still fill up. Soon after, the engine shakes violently, knocking becomes obvious, thick black smoke appears, and throttle response feels delayed. This is not a moody engine. This is an engine crying for help. That's why off-spec diesel and shady suppliers rank at the very top of this list. You don't encounter them every day, but when you do, damage happens fast, with almost no chance to undo it. For modern diesel engines, bad fuel is not a future problem. It's an immediate one. We often tell our viewers, if you suspect bad diesel, stop driving immediately. Don't trade an entire engine for the price of a few gallons of fuel. So where should you fuel up instead? We got you. Here are 3 diesel brands we consistently see delivering stable, engine-friendly quality. The core of Chevron diesel is Techron D, not a bottle hanging on a convenience store shelf. Not something you have to remember to buy after filling up. Techron D is built directly into the fuel and specifically designed for high-pressure diesel injection systems. This is a major difference that many people overlook. Modern diesel engines don't need extra treatments. They need fuel that's engineered correctly from the start. In real-world conditions, today's diesel injectors have extremely small nozzle openings, more sensitive to contamination than any previous generation. Even a microscopic layer of deposits can distort the spray pattern and reduce combustion efficiency. Techron D doesn't clean in a sudden, aggressive way that you notice after one tank. It works more quietly, preventing deposits early, maintaining proper spray shape, and keeping combustion consistent over time. The result is less vibration, smoother idle, and an engine that simply feels happier. Chevron is also one of the brands that meets the top-tier diesel standard, which is especially important for older and more experienced diesel owners. Top tier is not a self-awarded label. It's a standard set by major automakers, requiring higher detergent levels and stricter quality control than minimum regulations. For drivers, that means lower risk of long-term deposit buildup and fewer hidden time bombs in the fuel system. Shell Nitro Plus ranks high among engine-protective diesel fuels not because it makes your truck faster, more powerful, or sounds exciting. In fact, Shell largely avoids talking about extreme performance altogether. Instead, they focus on something that sounds boring but matters deeply to longtime American diesel drivers: preventing deposits and keeping the engine running consistently, day after day. Shell's Nitro Plus additive isn't just aimed at cleaning up old deposits, something many fuels and aftermarket additive bottles like to advertise. Its main purpose is to stop microscopic deposits from forming in the first place. These deposits are too small to see with the naked eye, yet large enough to slowly restrict injector nozzle openings over time. And once an injector orifice starts to degrade, there's no miracle that can truly restore it to factory condition. Another major benefit of Shell Nitro Plus shows up in the DPF, a component most owners only think about when the warning light comes on, usually at the worst possible time. DPFs don't fail because they're weak, but because they're forced to handle excessive soot under poor conditions. When fuel burns cleaner, the DPF fills more slowly and active regeneration cycles happen less often. Fewer regions mean less wasted fuel, fewer abnormal high-temperature events in the exhaust system, and less accumulated stress over time. ExxonMobil takes the top spot among engine-protective diesel fuels not because they advertise the loudest, promise the most, or paint a fantasy where your truck suddenly feels 10 years younger. In reality, it's the opposite. ExxonMobil wins because they are extremely boring, in exactly the way American diesel drivers appreciate. The core difference with ExxonMobil is near absolute consistency. They don't allow each station to decide how additives are blended. Whether you fill up in Texas, Arizona, or Pennsylvania, at a major station, or one in the middle of nowhere, the Synergy additive package is the same. That consistency directly protects the two most expensive parts of the fuel system: injectors and the high-pressure fuel pump. Synergy additives help keep injectors cleaner over time, reduce internal pump wear, and maintain stable fuel pressure. The result isn't a truck that suddenly feels hotter, but one with less knocking, less vibration under heavy load, and an engine that runs smoothly without feeling strained. ExxonMobil's advantage becomes most obvious on long road trips. When you're traveling far, you can't always choose a familiar station or stick to a trusted location. You fuel up where you can. With Synergy, at least you know the fuel you pump today isn't fundamentally different from what you pumped yesterday. This matters especially for RVs, tow rigs, and pickups crossing state lines, where every fuel stop is a bet on diesel quality. If you've been driving diesel long enough, you learn one thing: diesel engines don't just tolerate abuse. How you treat them is exactly how they pay you back. The bill just tends to arrive later. First, always prioritize fuel quality. Cheap diesel from low-traffic stations often lacks proper additives and is more likely to be contaminated with water from fuel sitting too long in underground tanks. It may not break your truck immediately, but it quietly wears down injectors, high-pressure fuel pumps, and the emissions system. With diesel, clean and consistent matters more than cheapest. Second, change your oil and filters on schedule. Or sooner, if you tow heavy loads, idle for long periods, or mostly drive in the city. Diesel engines operate under higher stress than gasoline engines, and old oil or dirty filters will accelerate wear on turbos, camshafts, and bearings. Also, don't let the fuel tank run too low. When fuel levels drop, sediment and water are more easily drawn into the system, increasing the risk of clogged filters and damaged injectors. Keeping the tank above 1/4 full is a simple but effective safety rule. When starting cold, don't stomp on the throttle. Give the engine a few minutes of light operation so oil circulation can stabilize. Diesel engines don't like being pushed before they're ready. Finally, pay attention to vibrations, unusual noises, smoke, and warning lights. Fixing problems early is always cheaper than fixing them late. This is a checklist worth remembering if you want a healthy engine that can stay with you for the long haul. In the end, your diesel engine isn't just about power, it's about precision. Every injector, every pump, every valve depends on the quality of what you're burning. Cheap fuel might save you a few bucks today, but clean, well-treated diesel is what saves engines years down the road. That's it for today's breakdown. If you learned something new about diesel fuel and how it really affects your engine, hit that like button. It helps this channel reach more diesel owners who care about doing things the right way. Now we want to know more about you. Drop a comment below. Tell us which diesel brand you trust and whether you've ever felt a difference after switching fuels. We read every comment, and your experience might save another driver a very expensive lesson. Finally, remember that everything shared in this video is based on publicly available information, manufacturer manuals, and reputable automotive research. The goal here is purely educational, to give you solid guidance and insight into diesel engines, not to promote or criticize any specific brand. Every diesel engine is different, and factors like driving style, load, climate, and maintenance history can all affect how your engine performs and what it truly needs. That's why it's always important to double-check the details, follow your vehicle manufacturer's recommendations, and make maintenance decisions that fit your own engine, driving habits, and budget. Use this information as a starting point to make smarter choices that help your diesel engine stay clean, efficient, and reliable for years to come. Thanks for watching, and if you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss future tips and guides. We'll see you in the next video, ready to keep your diesel running strong and smooth, mile after mile.